I get in there Shabbos. Last week we started speaking about the idea of Sfiras Omer being um, similar to the from Taras Matuma Nida from Tamzava. 7 weeks correspond towards the seven Zainikim, and we said that the Klal Yisrael coming out of Mitzrayim had to be entire themselves from Tumas Nida, and was also we spoke about the idea that heading towards Matan Torah, there was the concept of Tavli Nosai, that every woman becomes Tameh when they agree to get married, to go ahead with the Chasana date, to get married. And Klal Yisrael heading towards Matan Torah had to, coming out of Mitzrayim, being a part of the Goy B'Kerev Goy, they, when Hashem, we'll say, proposed to them, said, let's go get married, Tachas Achuppah, Tachas Matan Torah, Tachas Har Sinai, Migoydel Hachibuv, the great Tshuka from Klal Yisrael to get married to Hashem Kaviyachol, they were the Bechina of the raw dam nidus, just like every kala when they agreed to go to chasna, they see dam nidus. So Klal Yisrael, when the Hashem was teveh and it became official, they're going to marry a Kodesh Baruch Hu Kaviyachol. So they came to a recognition. Now we're going to be Hashem's husband. We have to get rid of the Tumas Nida from Tumas Mitzrayim, and they saw themselves as a new nation. They saw themselves as heading towards becoming a new nation with different way of living, with different ideas of life, and by that they realized that it was time to get rid of from them all the whole Tumas Mitzrayim and get clean, canned down to the major day of Yom HaChuppah. I would like to continue this week in this idea, but I would like to focus on the idea of Mitzrayim having the concept of Tumas Nida. Why is Mitzrayim, Tumas Mitzrayim, associated with Tumas Nida? What's the connection between them? Truth is, I feel like this could have been the first share I should have gave from all the shir. Very says the Geshir. But understanding this will give us a little more insight into the whole idea of Sfiras Omer being a tahara from Taras Tumas Nida. So let's go ahead. Now, I'd like to make a small akdama that everything we're going to say now over here is very, very, very deep. I don't understand it myself. So why am I saying things I don't understand? Good question. So first of all, I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say the majority of the things I'm going to say. I'm not coming from Teres HaKabbalah. It's all coming from Teres HaNigla, Chumash, Rashi, Midrashim, Gemaras, basic concepts. It's fascinating to see how when you focus on one idea and you bring in all the concepts together that you already knew, what kind of picture is created through that. So if I don't understand the why am I talking about it, because this is what everything says. It's in Psukim, it's in Gemaras, it's in Midrashim, it's in Mefarshim, Rashi, and all the Mefarshim. So obviously it was written for us to understand, to give us a certain message. The Ramban, it's famous, the Ramban, in the beginning of Chumash, speaks about the famous Rashi, that Rashi says really the Torah shouldn't have started from Ma'aseh Bereshis, it should have started from the Pasuk HaChodesh Zalachem. The Ramban is bothered. What does it mean? Why shouldn't the Torah have started from Ma'aseh Bereshis? All these Seidas Hamunah are there. We shouldn't think that the world is Kadmite, shouldn't be a Kaifer. And the Ramban explains that, yeah, it's true that we need these Seidas Hamunah, but you can't understand Ma'aseh Bereshis. Ma'aseh Bereshis is very deep. And you can only understand it in Kabbalah, with the Kabbalah, and even those that understand it, they have to hide it. Ma'aser Bereshis is not something which is given over to every person. And from what the Torah writes, you can't really understand it. So really, the Torah shouldn't have brought it because he anyways can't understand it. Just what? That's why, but it was written for another reason. So what we're going to talk about is Ma'aser Bereshis. Starts off with Ma'aser Bereshis. It's things that we can't understand, but although we can't understand it as shlims, still, if it was written, and all the Svaras speak about it, and it was written, it's still, we have to understand, get the picture as much as possible, and try and understand as much as possible. So, just to add another Nakuda in this, the Gemara in Bava Basra speaks about who was Eve. Who was Eve? And the Gemara has like 9 or 10 different shittas exactly when Eve lived and who he was. And it's fascinating. We have a sefer, one of the Sefer Tanakh, one of the Svarim from Tanakh, Eve, a whole story about Eve, and we have no clue who it is. Woman that was a marshal. We don't know who he is. He was in times of the Shoftim, was in times of Shva, was in times of Moshe Rabbeinu, was he a Yid, was he a Goy, was in times of Yaakov Avinu, in times of Achashverosh. Well, there's shittas. And the question is asked, is self-evident. Like, so we have a sefer of Eve, and we don't no clue who he was. Who wouldn't? And the Theret is, the way I understand it is that a site, which others already say, that many times that the written word, the details of what exactly transpired, is not the main nakuda from the whole discussion. Who cares if it was Eve, or was Astil Bar Knaz, or was Terach? It's not Negeya who these people were. It's Negeya. What to us is mostly Negeya, the story, the limit from the story. So the details of who, where, and what is not so Negeya. And this is a concept which we should be using in many places, that not always is the detail of the story the Nakuda. The Nakuda is what you learn out, what the concept is coming to teach us. So when we're talking about Ma'aser Bereshis, we're giving you over details, even though we can't understand fully what it's supposed to be meant for us. But we're supposed to get the picture what Chazal is trying to give us and learn out from there what we can learn out from. It's not let's not get carried away with the details. Let's try to use the details as a springboard to get deeper into Das Hashem. And that's what we're going to try to do over here. Chazal say, that eventually the Torah is going to get forgotten. And Shimon says, Chas v'shalom, the Torah is going to be forgotten. What does it mean, the Torah? So what is going to happen is that you're not going to find Torah, a clear Torah in one place. Some say it means you're not going to find it clear in one place, you're not going to find it anywhere. The Torah is not going to be as clear, there's always going to be machlokes. From the morale, it seems like that the Torah, just like Klal Yisrael in Galus, Torah is in Galus. It's mefuzah before Ben Amin. The Torah, the Talmud Bavli starts off with the sugya of Avelis Acharban. Starts look at Mesechus Brachos in the Mishnah, the Gemara, that Gemara Badalef. It's a whole sugya of the first thing in the Mishnah is Miramas to Avelis Acharban, and Gimel Badalef, the Gemara is Marach and the Avelis of Acharban, maybe more than any other place, even Chagiga. Is, I'm not sure. Maybe more. I'm getting this more, but this direct, tremendous avelis of Chorban is right in the beginning of the Gemara. And why? Because it says, Malkus Erev Goyim in Torah. The Torah, when Klal Yisrael went in Galus, there's no Torah. The Torah that we have is called Ein Torah. Nobody calls that Ein Torah. We don't have Torah. So what is this? So the Shimon says, what does that mean? Shlo tishtachach Torah. Chas shon tishtachach Torah Yisrael. Either means there'll be machlokes, or it means you're not going to find it in one thing. Torah, the way we have Torah is aniyas b'makom echad, ashiyas b'makom echad. It's very hard to learn. It's only Yechidim could finish the whole Torah and understand. Even that Yechidim can't fully grasp the whole Torah. The Rambam writes in one place he couldn't grasp fully the Torah. And and of course all the generations afterwards. And so going off tangent over here, but that's the idea over here, is that the Torah that we have, Talmud Bavli, Talmud Shalmi, is anis makom echad shoyis makom echad. You have to know the whole Shas in order to paskin in one place, and that's our job, to collect the Torah and make. And we see now in times of the Mashiach, all the Sfarim are being brought out on one topic. The Torah is being. We have Sfarim, a whole sefer on Shechiyanu, a whole sefer on Bama, a whole sefer on this halacha, a whole sefer on this halacha. Torah is becoming a makom echad. It's getting more clear. It's building. It's getting a mush beruda of makom echad. The loy b'chdid mush beruda is called mush beruda. That was the klala was shalim tzoy halacha beruda mush beruda makom echad. Come to Shabruda and calls it mush beruda. Everything is coming more. It's coming more of a form of timtz halacha beruda makom echad. Okay. So that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to bring all the concepts together and form a picture, make an art, beautiful art of how Shtalshlus of Tumas Nida started in the Bria, how it came down to Mitzrayim. And once we have a picture, we could start getting a little deeper into it. Eventually, it'll help us out in the future. But the first thing is see what the Torah teaches us, and then go on, understand better. Chazal say Adam Rishon was created mohel. He didn't have an arla. He was created in mohel. What happened in the end? The Gemara says in Sanhedrin, Daf Lamed Ches on the base, Omer Rabbi Yehuda Merav, Adam Yitzchak, the Adam Rishon was one thing. Rabbi Yitzchak Moishech Ba'Arlasei Haya. That Yitzchak says that Adam Rishon was Moishech Ba'Arlasei, means he was created in Moal, but he made himself back have an Arla. He undid the Mila. Heimaka Adam Avri Bris. As Brisi Hefer. He was made for the Bris. Chas Shalom, obviously this is all Mashalom, that Avrim wasn't Moshe Malasa, Yitzhi Kap of Shal Kosh Baruch Hu. And this Sfarim explained that Adam Rishon in the beginning was created like a Malach. He was clean, he had no Netiya to Gashmias. And with the Chet of the Eitz Hadas, what happened was, and that's the idea of Arla's take away the Netiya. For Gashmias to be shoylet the koyach asichli, the koyach achumri, and he was shoylet legamri. He had a kostnas he with the aleph, and he was in ganzen muvdal from shlitis achoyma aleph, and that's the idea from bris milah. What happened was that once the Chetay Tzadas came, he was shoylet the chomer al gesh al ruach, chomer al sichli, and that is called Moshech V'Arlasei. He got back the koyach of Arla. Now that's mitzat Adam Rishon. How did Adam Rishon get it? Adam Rishon got it from Chava. Chava was Machshel Adam Rishon. How did Chava got it? Chava got it from the Nachash. The Nachash, in the beginnings, it says in the Pasuk, Nachash was the smartest, other than his Chachma, he was the smartest of all the Chayes HaSadah. And he told the Isha, even if the Eibusha told you shouldn't eat from the Eitz Hadas, still, you should eat from it. And the lady told him, Isha Nachash, I can eat from everything from the Eitz Hagan, but I can't eat from the Eitz Hadas, because the Eibusha said not to eat. And he said, you shouldn't touch it. You're not going to die. The Barisha was scared. You're going to be like a Lakimi de Tevera. And if Tara Isha, the lady saw, Chava saw, Kiteva Itz Lamachal, Chisabi Lanayim. So the Shemak, the fruit looked so juicy. She went and she ate it. And what happened? happened was, the Baruch Shem says, what did you do over here? Why did you eat from the Eitz of Das? Hanochash hashi'ani v'oichel. The Nachash was mata, he said, tricked me to eat it. So the Eibusha told the Nachash, Ki yisisa zois ora'at m'kol behema. M'kol chayis is you're cursed from all the behemoths and all the chayis. You're going to grow, you go in your stomach. You're going to eat offer, you eat offer your whole life. The Omar, the Moshe told the woman, Chava, Haba Arba Tzvanayich V'Araynach, and Be'etzah tell the bottom, I'm going to make you a lot of pain. You have a lot of pain, and it's going to be very painful to have children. That is the story of the Nachash and Chava. So what do we see over here? The Nachash was the smartest of all animals. And he wasn't on the stomach. Today's days, the Nachash is on the stomach. In times of the Torah, Adam Rishon, Nachash did not go on his stomach. And he didn't eat Afa. And the Gemara says in Saita that in Uchem Mitzini b'Nachash HaKadmoni we find b'Nachash HaKadmoni she'nosan inu b'masha inu eloi. He wanted to go after his eyes for things that weren't right from him. And what he wanted, they didn't give it to him, and whatever he had, they took away from him. Means the Nachash saw, Chazal explained, that the Nachash saw Adam and Chava being Mishamish, doing Tashmish, Amita, having intimate relations, because in those times again, everything was not, there was Shoylet to Koyach HaSichli, was Shoylet on Koyach HaChumri, and they were like malachim, so they even did it in a way that even the Nachash was able to understand what they were doing and saw what they were doing. And the Nachash, he was Nesava to Chava, and he became intimate. He was Ma'anis Chava, and he wanted what did he want? He wanted to take Chava from Adam Rishon, and so what he wanted he didn't get, and whatever he had he lost. Ani amarti, Omar Kodesh Baruch Hu, Moshe said, Ani amarti, I said, Yehi melech al kol behema v'chaya. I wanted that the Nachash should be the king on all the behemoths and chayas. V'achshav or atam kol behema v'chol chaya. So now the Nachash is going to be the most cursed from all behemoths and chayas. Ani amarti, I said, Yehi yahalach b'koim kufa. He should go around standing. All the behemoths and chayas were all going 4 legs. The Nachash was supposed to go on 2 legs, and that's how he went around on 2 legs. Now he's going to go on his stomach. And I said he was supposed to eat the same thing a man eats. Now he'll eat offer. And the Gemara goes on. So the Nachash was walking around like a person. He was eating like a person. He was supposed to be the king on all the behemoths and chayas. And he was jealous of Adam Rishon. And that's what brought his grace and mafala to be the worst of everything. These are all Pasha Psukim, Pasha in Biomara. Chazal say, Rashi brings it down from a Medrash, a few places, that what we mentioned before, that the Nachash saw Adam and Chava being Mishamish, and he was jealous, and that's how this whole problem happened. And Rashi in a few places says, Hanochash Heshi'ani Le'echel. The Nachash was the simple meaning means he tricked me. So he says Heshi'ani is a lashon from Nesuin. Heshi'ani is lashon from Nesuin. The Nachash married me, Kaviyachol, whatever. And I ate. What does it mean? He married me and I ate. That through the Nachash's Zvala was intimate with her. The Nachash in that matzav, he had a koyach hadibber. He had a koyach. He ate like a man. He spoke like a man. He stood like a man. He was ba al Chava. He was intimate with Chava, and that's the way actually he got Chava to eat the fruit. It wasn't just he said, "Oh, Hashem said not to eat," and no. The Nachash was Baal Chava, and that's how he got her to eat. It's important to point out that similarly we find that Chazal say, it's Gemara Masechtas Yevamis, that Adam Rishon was ba al kol behema v'chaya. He was intimate with every behema and every chaya, and he was not lo niskara data. He wasn't calm until he met Chava. That's how he knew that this is my wife. Zoisapam. Now is the time. Etzamet, somebody, it's basim sorry. Until now, I didn't know it was my time. Now is my time. And the Mefarshim, many Mefarshim say chas shalom, to think it's kapshutai that Adam Rishon came up was bal al kol chai behema. And Shamaral v'oid harbe. I'm just mentioning this, that just like the Gemara, many say that it's not kapshutai. So when learning this thing that the Nachash bal chava, we have to take it for the limud, whether it's kapshutai or not is not so relevant. It's the nekuda, what were the ideas that we're supposed to take out of it, as we spoke earlier. So, but that's what it says. Hanochach Eshiani, and the Nachash was Mishamashus mi Tashmish, and that's how he came to eat from the Eitz Hadas. What happened because of the Chet Eitz Hadas? Chava was in the skull. Be'esev Tel Dibonim. Harba Arba al Tzvenaich. I'm going to make a lot. Harba Arba. I'm going to make a lot of your atzvus. What does that mean? That the Gemara says Dam Nida and Dam Sulam. She becomes a Nida and she has a lot of pain. She has some pain when she went the first time to Balal, that she gets that. Why was that? And because of the Chet of Chava, because the Nachash was Balal, because she was Nichshel in the Eitz Chet Eitz Hadas, she was in the skull with Dam Nidus, Dam Sulam. So here is the first mention, the first Shoydish of Dam Nidus, Dam Sulam by a lady. Where did it come from? It came out the Einish of the Chet Eitz Hadas. And the Medrash says that why did Isha get the mitzvah of Nidus? Because Shoifech Dam Adam, Dam Yishofech, because she was Shoifech Dam Adam, she caused death to mankind. That's why Dama Yishofech, her blood will spill. And that's why she had to have her blood spilled every week, every month, because she spilled the human's blood in the beginning. That was the einish of the blood. And Rebbe Mechai says, look, there's no other animal in the world, no other creature in the world that has damnidus, only the woman. And he says that the reason why the woman's different is because she was nichshel in the chet of the Eitz Hadas. And Shlach speaks about, brings down from the Sefer Telas Yaakov, that Chazal, many places, as we'll see, Bez Hashem, speak about that the Nachash put Zuama into Chava. Kalsul got tar for the Zuama by Mount Torah, and they got back by the eagle. But the original idea of Zuama comes from the Nachash was Baal Chava. And she was Baal Chava. The Nachash Zuama, we all know that there are many poisonous snakes, and it's all outcome of the Nachash Hakadmoini, which had Zuama, which had poison, and it gave into it. He gave into Chava from his Zuama, and that was the Siba. That Zuma was the Shorish and the Siba, the Adam Nidus of Chava. He touches up. The Gemara says that the Eitz Hadas was a wine. She pressed wine or grapes and she gave it to Adam Rishon. So he says that's what it means. It's the wine is l'umas. She pressed wine grapes. It says she created the matzav of Dam Nidus, of the Zuama, and she gave it over to Nachash. And that's why he says the months of Shabbos, ladies don't eat from the Havdalah wine, just because of that Chazal, that Sachta Anavim and gave it to Adam Rishon. I guess the first day is Muchum Keneged the Bria Soilem, I don't know. But months of Shabbos, that's the reason why they're not toying from the Havdalah wine. So we learned from here that the Nachash was Matal Zuma and Chava, and from there is the Shorish of Dam Nidus. Now, we have to understand, when we're talking about the Chet Adam Rishon, Chet Adam Rishon was always supposed to be. There's no such a thing as the Chet Adam Rishon wasn't supposed to be. Chet Adam Rishon was the world was originally intended for the Chet Adam Rishon. What do I mean? The world wasn't created we should be malachim. The world was created we should have nisyonos and get out of the world throughout the goyver of the Yetzer Hara, and through that be masak in the world, through that be koin olam haba. And what I'm saying now is mufurish in the Medrash Tanchuma, and it's Medrash Rabbah, that both say that the Medrash Tanchuma is going on the pasuk of L'chi chazim apalos alakim. Go look and see the works of Hashem. Neira alila b'nei adam. He's in awe. We're in awe. He's scary. Neira alila b'nei adam is his alila on people. There is a concept. There is a mahalach in the Brias Olam that the Rebbe Shalom sometimes comes with an alila b'nei adam. What does that mean? It sometimes comes as a alila b'nei adam. Certain things were originally intended to be, but in order to be, it has to go through a certain process, and maybe sometimes the process was a chet. So in order to get to that tachlis, the Rebbe wanted to go through this way, and he made believe it looks like really this thing wasn't intended to be, but really it wasn't intended to be. And the Medrash gives a few examples, and one of the examples is of Adam Rishon. It says in the Torah, the way Hashem wrote the Torah, it says. And this is the Malach HaMavis, and the person was created Yom HaShishi, and it says means Abish created the Malach HaMavis before the Adam Rishon was ready, was even around to be Chayt. So Hashem knew, created the Malach HaMavis because he knew that the person was supposed to die. And the Medrash gives an example of a person that writes a get, wants to get divorced of his wife. So he writes a get, and he comes into his house, and he finds something to complain about, and he gives his wife the get. So his wife says, "Oh, you had to get already. Obviously, you knew that you wanted to give me. You just find the teretz to be garish me." So to Hashem knew there was a created Malach HaMavis. He was supposed to be in business. But Hashem found the chet of Eitz Hadas. But really, that was always intended. And the Medrash goes on. There's a whole parasha. There's another Medrash also. The Zeus HaTorah Od Giyalas Oil. It's a parasha of Od Giyalas Oil. And if Adam Rishon wasn't supposed to be die, then why is this such a parasha? Elamai, it was always supposed to be. So when we're talking about the process of Tumas Nida, the Chet Adam Rishon, we have to understand that this is the way it's supposed to be. This is the way it was originally intended to be. And Talmud Nidas had to come through this way. And Chazal say that why was a person created? Yichidi lam l'chashakal olam abed nefesh achas Yisrael malav kosaki kili ibed olam olam. If someone killed a Yiddish child, it's like as if he killed the whole world. Everyone has to say Mishvili Nivra Olam. What does that mean? Yes, there was a Chet Adam Rishon. The Chet was intended to be. Now that it was, every person is supposed to stand up and try to be in place of Adam Rishon. Be misakin that Chet. Be mashtot the Chayim al Ruach, the Seichel al Gashem. And like that, take the world in hand. Everyone's supposed to see himself as now Adam Rishon botched up, so now I gotta fix it. Hashem was looking for someone to fix the Chet of Adam Rishon. Every person is supposed to stand there and say, "It's me. I'll be in the place of Adam Rishon." And so when did that happen? Mishnah say from Adam to Noach with 10 days. To tell you how much erech apayim, how much how much Hashem holds back from anger. All the days were angering Hashem and were coming until he brought them Mabel. So and then there was another 10 days from Noach until Avram. The idea can Erech HaPayim the fun of to know how much Erech HaPayim is in front of Hashem. Shakol HaDoris Hoimachisen Ibon, all days were angering and coming. At Shabbat Avram, the Kibbutz Schar Kilam until Avram came and he was a Kibbutz Schar of everyone. This we didn't say by Noach. At Shabbat Avram Kibbutz Schar Kneged Kulam. Only by Avram Avinu. And Rashi explains it. Yonah explains that Avada Noach wasn't in the Madrega from Avram Avinu. We know already Rashi al-Torah says, Noach when it wasn't, would be nechsha for anything. He was good enough for the world not be destroyed. He was good enough to save him and his family. The world should be means the world should go on and be Hashem should be marach af a little bit more, keep the world going. But Noach wasn't there but Makamad Marishan. He wasn't there to be the one that's intended the world to be created for. It wasn't Kedai to have the world around for him. He was Kedai enough to keep the world going. But the world wasn't until Avram even came and the Kibbutz Char Kilam. What does it mean Kibbutz Char Kilam? Look at the Tveres Yisrael. It says that the world was intended that it should go. We should be in Mishkan Tachas Kamfa Shechina, and to have a bris with Hashem, and they should learn Torah, and Hashem should make nisim for them, and it should be Nevi'im. And it was intended for every individual should be like that. That was the intention of that was the idea of Adam Rishon Koydem Achet. A person that's a Navi talking to Hashem, Mishkan Shechina, to have a bris with Hashem, to teach his children to have a nation. Every person should have their own nation. Should be its own world. That was the Tachlis. And Avraham came, Kibbutz Char Kneged Kulam, that's what he got. And when did he get this? When was he Zoiche to get this? When was he Zoiche to be Oimid b'Makam Adam Rishon? That's the one who was Mechsakim the Chet Adam Rishon. When was he Mechsakim the Chet Adam Rishon? In the Bris Milah. In the Bris Milah, what happened? Until then, the Adam Rishon was Moshech Ba'alosei. And Avraham came, he was in Stava to be mal himself because he came to this madrega of Shlitas HaChomer, Ruach al HaChomer, HaSeichel al Geshem. Mori B'Sat Zador says, in the beginning it says Avram, and then it says Avraham, out of the hay. In the beginning, Hashem was Mamlechem on 243 Evorim. Avram is 243. And then a person has Ramach. They added another 3. Was the Ramach Avarim. Hashem was added another 5. And Hashem was Mamlechem on all the Avarim he had. You can say he was Shodet, and the Yitzhak wasn't Shodet in any of Avarim. Which Avarim with the Eibishter, which with the 5 Avarim the Eibishter put in his hand that he could be Shodet on, that until now he wasn't. That was the 2 eyes, the 2 ears, and the Milah. All these things are not biyad Adam, and the Eibishter was showing that Avram on it. Now it was like a tool in his hand. He didn't have a koyach. He wasn't able to hear anything wrong, see anything wrong, and the Milah wasn't moshechem to any gashmias. And that was the koyach. When did he get this? The Ram says, the Farshim say that this was when it's time of bris milah. That's when he was nishlat in all Avarim. So what Avraham Avinu, why did he have the bris with Hashem? Because now he came to the tikkun of the Chet Adam Rishon of a Moshech Ba'alosei, and that's how he came to be showed on himself. So Avraham Avinu, after 20 days, he came to Zoichet to Misakim the Chet Adam Rishon. And it's fascinating. The Rizal writes in Sefer Shal Yerulim, Chaim Vital brings down that any time a big neshama comes down to this world, it's the clip of Sitra Acha is very misnag. It doesn't let this thing happen. I'm not going to let this neshama gedoyle come out. So what's the mahalach of getting this neshama gedoyle into this world? That Hashem hides it. He hides that neshama, brings it in a place which the Sitra Acha would never think that would be an appropriate place, and that's how to bring it out. And one of the examples he gives, Terach Terach was, we know, was a Avodah Zarah. Not only a Avodah Zarah, he was a Farsim Avodah Zarah, he made Avodah Zarah, he sold Avodah Zarah. And the Rebbe Shalom, in order to bring Avraham Avinu, brought him through Terach, because he was a Rasha, and through the Rishus, the Sifrach is not going to chap that Avraham Avinu was there, and that's how he'll take him out. But the Rizal adds, Dvarim Neflam Oid, that Terach was not only a Rasha mitzad Avodah Zarah, he was also Azar Rasha Merusha. That B'shas, his wife, was seeing Dam Nidus. B'shas, she was Shefeya Dam Nidus. He was Ba'alel. B'shas, the idea from Nidus, he was Ba'alel. And that's, from that Bia itself, Avraham Avinu was born. Through that klipa kosher ma'od of Dam Nidus, that's how Avraham Avinu was born. That's what Tzlachah didn't chap. And he says that's why it says that song that's Baal al Nida is song that's Baal al Nida is loike b'tzeras. Now, Eve was loike b'shchim b'tzeras, and why was Eve loike b'shchim? Because he was a gilgul from Terach. But the point over here is that Avraham Avinu was noiled from what? From Bias Nida, Shas Nida. And I think this adds some taste to what we're talking about. Avraham Avinu was Mesakin the Chet of the Marishan, was Mesakin the Chet from the Zuama Anachash. In order to be Mesakin the Chet of the Anachash, the Zuama from the Nachash, the Chet of the Marishan, and Chava, almost such a big tikkun could only come out through a hester of the biggest rishus in that area. And through the chet of Bias Nida, that's how the Neshama Gedola of Avraham Avinu came out. And Avraham Avinu was this. There was one that was the first one to get the bris milah. Hashem was curious in my bris because he was shaylatent. He was meat and tor tome mitar tome eat and tor mitome. Now, Avraham Avinu was the first one to go stelzich in the feet of Adam Rishon Kohen Machet. He showed the ruach al gof, seichel al gashem. So Avraham Avinu started the cleaning process, but the cleaning process didn't end until a little bit later. The Gemara says in Masechtas Shabbos, why are the chum mezuhamim? Not sure, either means smelly or sweaty more than Yidden. So Mora says Shaloi Amdi ala Har Sinai, because they weren't by Har Sinai. Shemshol Shabo Nachash al Chava, when the Nachash came on Chava, Hitl bo Zuma, he put into the Chava Zuma. Yisrael Shalom Dil Har Sinai, Yisrael that stood at Har Sinai, Paskas and Masam. There's Zuma stop. Chum Shaloi Amdi ala Sinai, Chum that weren't ala Har Sinai. The Paskas and Muslim, the Zuama didn't stop. Klal Yisrael, as a nation, was Mesakin the Chet of the Marishan. Ani Amati El Kimatem, that was the Matan Torah. And, but the Chachamim weren't there, so they still are in the Matzav of Adam Rishon L'Achar Achet. And you'll see that a part of Gedus is Tefillah. Part of Gedus is Tefillah. So you see, you need a Tahara. You need Tahara like a Taharas Nida in order to come in to Klal Yisrael. You also have to have that in order to get Paskas Zamosa. So the Gemara says that Yidden only at the Matan Torah were they Mezakech from the Zuam Anachash. And the Gemara goes on and says that Gerim also, because they are Neshama Matan Torah, and the Gemara says that this is a chaylik on the Rab Abba Bar Kahana that says that the Zuam must stop at Yaakov Avinu. Avraham Avinu was Moiled Yishmael, Yitzchak was Moiled Esav, Yaakov had 12 Shvatim. That's when there was no Mezuama. Machlekes when the Zuma was stopped. The Zuma either did it stop by Yaakov Avinu or did it stop by Matan Torah. And obviously, this is not a machlekes. These are two layers of paskas amasam of the Zuma stopping. One is mitzad the ovis, and the next one is mitzad the Uma. And you could say mitzad the Yemois. I'll explain. The Zohar Kodesh says that the Yitzchak and Rabbi Yossi were going on the way from Terya to Lud. Rabbi Yossi asked, why are the Noshim so busy with Kshafim? Why do we find the Noshim more connected to Kshafim? And the Zohar Kodesh says, because the Nachash was Bal Chava, and he was Matul Bazuam. So Hagam, that Adam Rishon also got from the Zuama, but it had a greater effect on Chava because she was directly injured by the Nachash. And that's why the Kshafim are more found by the Nashim, because the Kshafim and the Zuama from the Nachash go together. That's what the Zohar Kodesh says. The Chidor brings down from Chaim Vital that the reason why it's enough to get rid of the Zuama by a man through bris milah, and a lady needs a zayin nikiyim, is because the man only got the Zuama from the woman. The woman was directly impacted. So the woman that was directly impacted needs zayin nikiyim. The man is only mesukin through, and the man doesn't need so much zayin nikiyim. All he needs is bris milah. And that's what Avraham Avinu was misakin, the boy from Kloli, the chet of Adam through bris milah, as we spoke about. Now the Noshim need to have zayin nikiyim. But what do we see from the Zohar, from Chaim Vital, that the Noshim were impacted a lot more than the men b'negei Zuamas and Nachash. And that's why it's understood that even though there was the Ovis were misakin, the Chet Otomrishon, and the Zuma stopped by Yaakov Avinu, and we could say the reason why the Zuma stopped by Yaakov Avinu was because Yaakov Avinu was loyroi carry miyamav. He never saw carry in his life. Yaakov Avinu was mashlam b'tikkun b'shleimus. So not only carry, also he was misakin. That's why he was misakin the tumas nida. So by Yaakov Avinu was nishlam the shlaf and the ovis. The men were misakin the zuama with Yaakov Avinu. The ovis, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov together, all misakin. But the Klal Yisrael as a ummah with mitzad the imois, and it's the Rebbeinu Mechai says that the nature of children always are the tchunas gashmias. All the natures are basic, usually go according to the woman. If you side to good, side for bad, you have a good person. His tzaddik is because of his mother. The other Rosh is because of his mother. It's because the mother's nature is much stronger in the child. So Klal Yisrael, even though the others were masakin the Chet Adam Rishon, and there was a bris milah, and there was a whole sesh, there was a shvatim, but as a nation, mitzad the Mois, Rachel, Leah, Bilhah, and Zilpah, they had to be Sarah and Rachel, Sarah and Rivka, they had to be misakin now as a nation. There was a bigger tumah still around, and the Noshim, and that's what Zayin Nikiyim came. That was the Tumas Mitzrayim. They went down to Mitzrayim, and that was the process that brought us to Mitzrayim to get that bigger madrega of Tikkun, which wasn't enough with the others. And a fascinating thing we find in the Medrash Tanchuma, really fascinating, hard to believe, but that's what the Medrash writes, that in the past, ladies, also men would have damnidus. Until Rachel said, Kiderech Nosham Li, that I have the derech of the Nosham, but Nitala, and she got it. It means to say that Rachel was the first woman to have, only the woman should have damnidus. Until Rachel, damnidus was around. even by men. Fascinating thing was a Metzias that Dam Nidus was around by men. The Chidah in one place brings down a story which a person who he met, which he says, Magid Emes, people that truthfully tell me that this person had a vest. He would see every Chodesh Dam Nidus. This is what the Chada writes. But the Medrash says this concept. There was in the past, the men also had Dam Nidus. When did that stop? The Dam Nidus stopped by Rochel. So now we can ask, why Dafka Rochel? Well, according to what we're saying, is amazing. Because Yaakov Avinu was the last one to be Misakin the Chetam Derushin. And that's why, when Yaakov Avinu, in this period, when Rochel said Derech Rosham, it says in the Psikta that Rochel was Mu'uber with Binyamin. She's Mu'uber with Binyamin, she shouldn't be seen. So she saw, Rachel saw, in times of Chazal, in times of the Torah, ladies saw the first 3 months. And this was in the first 3 months that she had a child in 7 months. But the Rachel in this process was Mu'uber with Binyamin. So when she was Mu'uber with Binyamin, then what? Then she was Meberes with Binyamin. And the Shvatim were finished. All the 12 Shvatim were born. Now that the Shvatim were born, was the Shleimus of Tikkun of Yaakov Avinu. He was Masakin the men, and Rachel said, Kederech Hanoshim Li. That's what happened. So that's why only by the ladies have Dam Nidus. That comes from Rachel. That time Rachel said, Hanoshim Li. Rachel was Ekeres Abayis, and that's why it was Nizgala. Now that Rachel told Lavan, don't think of stopping us and coming back to your house. Because Yaakov Avinu had to go down in Galus and be Misakin Chet Adam Rishon. He had to go down and he was Loiroi Tippus Karimiyamov, even though he was in Galus and by all between everyone else. He held Bashlemus, he was Misakin Chet Adam Rishon. He had 12 children and he was Mashlam himself. And now it's time to go back to Eretz Yisrael and start the next process of the world of the Shvatim, and you won't be able to hold us back. Now it's time for my tikkun. The children of Yaakov Avinu are heading back. You're not going to have a shlita on us. Now we're going to start the next process of the tikkun Chetam Rishon through the woman, Thomas Nida of the woman. Now we're coming to the Tumas Mitzrayim. We're coming to Tumas Mitzrayim. So now we know where the shayrish of the Tumas Mitzrayim comes. It comes from Chet Adam Rishon, which was left over for Rachel, the Mois, to Misakin now, with Klal Yisrael going down to Mitzrayim. What was Mitzrayim all about? What was the place of Mitzrayim? The Tana B'Ayol says, why did Hashem send the Yidden in Mitzrayim from all other nations? Because in that time, Mitzrayim was the kingdom of the whole world. They were full of affairs. There was no nation in the world that was shatef, was infested with bad stuff. And Zima, in Chol Masayim Ron, he mentioned, the Medrash Tanchuma mentions, the Medrash Tanchuma mentions Shafan and Zima, which is all from the Zohar Masanagosh, and that's why it was the worst thing, and Rebbe Shalom wanted to punish Mitzrayim, so that's why he used Mitzrayim to be able to be punished. Mitzrayim was Erbas Haaretz. It was the place of the Zohar Masanagosh, was its strongest form. And it came the time to misaken the tumah from the Zumas and Achash. Then the Medrash says that the 4 things the Yidden were nigal from Mitzrayim: Shloshin Shemam, L'Shoinam, and the Medrash says Lamal Bisham and Lashon Hara, L'Amri Lashon Hara. I don't know how that stems with the Rashi of the Chumash, but L'Nimtzem Paretz Be'erva. We all know many places in Torah and Chazal that point out that why would the Yidden zeicher we were married in this already in the past? Why would the Yidden zeicher to go out of Galus, Mitzrayim? Because there was no there weren't nixal princess. There was one achas of person Arkasav. Not only were there nizar from from Pritzes to Nizar from Dam Nidus, and the Torah over there says that the reason why the first Makkah was a Makkah from Dam, because the Mitzrim tried to hold them back from being toivel from Dam Nidus, and Yidden was Shomer Dam Nidus. That's where they were Nanish with Dam, first Makkah, and that's how that schus was the Gula, and this was, and I believe that this was the main sign of the Pritzes, because it was such a Mokum Tumah. Lashoinam, Mabisham, and Lashon Hara, and these things are very chashuv. Maybe the forms who they are, and by El Chavere. But the biggest sign in such a place was the Pritzes, was the Zuam as Hanachash. Well, it was this Nakuda, and this was the reason why there was Zeich for the Gula. And this is the idea that now you understand that because it was such a makom shot of zima, the kshafim, it was such a powerful tumah over there in Mitzrayim. Because of that, it was the place which they can be misaken the chet of nidus, the chet of zuam asanachash, and how they were misaken with it by not being nishal with it, by being strengthening themselves and being nizar hachakus. The only lady that was nishal in the Achas Hoysa Pirsim HaKasav, in the Rayas, was someone that was talked to anyone, talked to every stranger, Chazal say. Shlomis Bas Divri. His mother was called Divri because she spoke to everyone. She wasn't nizar in Achakas. She wasn't nizar to be, she didn't know her Gdarim in these stuff. And that's why she was nishal. But Gans Klaus was nizar, and that's why they were nigel from Mitzrayim. And that's how they eventually came to Misak and the Chet Adam Rishon. That's how the Kederach HaNasham Li was niskan through this hanhaga of hachakas nida. Everyone has that opportunity while they are with their wife, and there's the dam nidus, the period of dam nidus. They have the opportunity to say l'bishvili nivra olam. They have the opportunity to stand up in that matzav and be b'makom adam rishon, to mesakim mechat adam rishon. Everyone has his Mitzrayim in his time, his period, and that is while the issue is dam nida is still in Tumas dam nida, and through achakas he stands strong. He's zeichet to the geula, he's zeichet to all the brachas, and that's why all the brachas, as we have spoken in the past, and Shir Shim brings out that all the brachas come in Schus and Tahara, because Tahara from Dam Nidos is a Tahara for Zumas Anachash. Every house is supposed to be a Mishkan Hashem, and the Mishkan Hashem has to go through Mitzrayim to get out with Tahara every individual. There was the Avos, and then there was Kalal Yisrael as a Kalal, and every person as a Prat. He goes through this process of Behiloi Neder Al Reshi. When he's in his wife's, in the mother's womb, he knows the whole Torah. And he comes out and he has that major fall. And he has to build himself up. And he has to come out of this. And how does he come out of this? So the Tahara from Zumas Anachash is, when he was with his wife and his Shomer Chakus, he brings down the Tahara, he brings down the Shechina into his house through Chakus. And he's zeichet to the geula, and that is the shirish of what the Sfirat Ha'omer is coming to take us out of. Taking us out of is cleansing. We went through Tumas Mitzrayim. We got out of it. Eibusha took us out of it. Now is the time to count the Shiva Nekiyim, and we should be zeichet to Kabbalzan the Yom Chasinasa, Yom Simchas Liboy. We should be zeichet to be Kibses Chosna Hakala Yosef Halayich Alakoyach. We should be zeichet to be Tavak in the Vayishlon B'chol Eisa B'chol Zman. And zeichet to Kabbalah Satera Mitis.